that throughout Matthew chapter 13. You have some longer parables in that chapter. But here in chapter 13 and verse 33, you have a one-verse parable. And it's amazing that out of one verse, Brother Winkler would get 13 points. But if you ever heard, we had Wendell Winkler down here for a gospel meeting, early 90s, I would say it was. And Brother Winkler was one of my favorite preachers. And if you ever heard him preach, you would understand him having 13 points in this particular lesson. But in Matthew 13, verse 33, what does Jesus say? Another parable Jesus spoke to them. The kingdom of heaven is like leaven, which a woman took and hid in 3 measures of meal till it was all leavened. What's the kingdom of heaven? Somebody said it softly. You can say it louder if you want. It's the church. Scott's stealing somebody else's answer. He heard somebody else answer it, and so now he's saying it, which is not a bad thing to do. When the answer is right, it's not a bad thing to steal the right answer. So the kingdom is the church. So Jesus is saying, insert the church for kingdom of heaven. Jesus is saying the church is like leaven. Well, what's the church? Don't say the kingdom, okay? That would be a cheat answer. What'd you say, Scott? It's the people. So if the church, if the kingdom is like leaven, then the people who make up the Lord's church are like leaven. Did you ever consider yourself to be like leaven? Maybe not. But that's the description here. The church is like the sower who went out to sow, and there's a lot of descriptions that are here in chapter 13. The church is like leaven that a woman took, hid in 3 measures of meal until it was all leavened. And so we looked at 4 qualities last week. We're not going to go through all of these again, but just let me show these 4 to you, and then we'll get on to some other ones here. We looked at the quality of leaven, that it is a silently working force. It doesn't make a lot of noise. It just goes about its work. And gets it done without drawing a lot of attention to itself. Is that a good quality for us to have? We looked at the quality that leaven influences but is not influenced. The leaven, once you stick it in, is not going to be influenced by the dough. It's going to influence the other. And isn't that the way we should be? Should we be the influencer and not the influencee? We looked at the quality that leaven works persistently, that once you put it in, you can't stop it. And so it works persistently, it works unceasingly through, so that the majority is, even though the majority is against it, the leaven is smaller than the lump of dough that it's put into, and yet it just keeps working no matter what the rest of the world wants. Is that a good quality for us to have? Is the majority against us? Sure. Does that mean we just stop? No, the leaven keeps on working. And then we saw the quality that leaven, in order for leaven to work, leaven has to be mixed with the substance in order to influence. If you keep leaven all by itself over in a jar all alone, what's it going to do? It's not going to do its job. Leaven's job is not to sit in a jar with other leaven. It's not its job. Leaven's jar is to be put into that lump of, and the only way it can influence something is for it to be placed there. Now, is there a difference between being in the dough and not of the dough? Is there be a difference between in the world and not of the world? I'll clarify that for you, Scott. Is there a difference between being in the world but not of the world? Is there a difference between that? And so that's our responsibility. We have to make contact with the world. Doesn't mean we become like them. It doesn't mean that we are influenced by them. But the only way for us to reach somebody with the gospel is to go and to make contact with that person. So those were the 4 qualities that we looked at last week. There's some overlap in some of these, but I find it kind of intriguing how different some of these qualities are. Leaven works from the inside to the outside. Is that true? Leaven works from the inside to the outside. I don't know if you all have noticed this. And I don't want to, I jinxed 2 things earlier today, so I don't want to do it again. But I don't know if you all have noticed it, but the AC is working. I've been feeling it for about the last 5 minutes, so I just thought I'd share that news with you. So now, the mind has great power, doesn't it? Now that you know the AC is working, guess what your body temperature just did? See, the mind is a powerful thing. So it is working. So if you sit here for another 2.5 hours, it will be down to the right temperature.